Okay. Hi, Alex. Hi, Aaron. We're on live. Let's wait a few seconds to get people on board with us.
Good evening.
Good evening. So when they were little, it was very fun when it was snowing. Now there's no, okay, it's snowing. Oh, okay.
It's like everything else.
It goes for everything. Yeah, exactly.
It's the same answer for everything.
Absolutely.
They saw everything on the screen already, so it's not such a big deal.
Yeah, no, as long as there's internet, then really nothing else really matters at this point. Yeah.
But I mean, they managed. We had a vacation a couple of years ago in Germany in Black Forest, and then somehow we were cheated, and there was no internet at the house that we rented. And then, of course, kids were like for 24 hours, they were just junkies, looking for. looking for it. But then suddenly they discovered other things. So I mean.
I know, it's terrible. Nowadays, everybody is if there's no internet, there's like this tension, exactly like junkies. Where is it? Where is it? Why don't we have it? How come there's no internet?
Like without Waze or GPS, we're lost.
Completely.
Forgot about the maps and.
Completely. Okay, I think we should start. People are starting to come in, and we should start. So, good evening to everybody. My name is Katsman. I'm an attorney since 1996, and I own a private practice in Bet Shemesh. My main focus is estate planning and elder law, which means preparing wills, enduring power of attorneys, trusts, and advising on estate and U.S. and Israel tax issues relating to people with dual citizenships. From my exposure with people, with the elderly group, I decided to host talk sessions with various professionals who deal with issues relating to seniors. And because a lot of seniors plan for retirement and actively manage their savings after retirement, a number of investment scams have been targeting them in particular. So today we're going to talk about elderly fraud basics, what to look out for, and how to protect ourselves from internet fraud. And before we start, I'd like to introduce my two speakers for today. So Alex Gaft, who is a certified fraud examiner and certified in financial crime prevention, correct?
Yes.
Did that right?
Hello.
And good. And has led highly sensitive and complex fraud and forensic investigations worldwide. And Aaron Katsman, who is the president and CEO of Lighthouse Capital, a boutique wealth management firm based in Yerushalayim. And he has over 20 years of experience helping people open and manage their investment accounts. So before we actually start into the nitty-gritty, I want to open up with a recent case that I heard of in the news. Israeli police are investigating dozens of cases recently to do with criminals who are taking advantage of the corona panic to basically break into other people's house. And recent case was somebody who was a 67-year-old pensioner who had a call from a non-traceable number. And the man introduced himself as a representative of the Ministry of Health and told him that due to exposure to a verified COVID patient, he and his whole family who's living with him have to basically be examined urgently and immediately and go to their Kupat Cholim, which they did, which meant the house was empty. And when they returned, they found that the house was broken into, jewelry and money and very expensive items were basically stolen, and the house was a total mess. And when he was asked by the police, he said, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I thought it was a real message. It was a real phone call. The guy on the other side sounded real and very serious. And I had no reason to believe otherwise. So with that optimistic story, I'm going to transfer the microphone to Alex. Can you please explain a little bit more in depth about the types of abuse that we should be aware of?
Okay, so first of all, Miri, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. I think that this topic is very, very important. And of course, talking to my own parents, from time to time about different related topics. I know that this is something that is of interest to people of their age group. So I'm very happy to be here. First of all, please don't become paranoid as a result of this webinar. Me being paranoid, it's my professional necessity, but please don't become paranoid like me. Just know that basically elderly population became a target group for criminals, and just be careful and trust your gut feeling, because obviously you have a lot of experience, much more than probably three of us together, and just listen to your experience and your senses, and like I said, your gut feeling, and then immediately you will pay attention to red flags that I'm gonna describe further on, and then just don't become a victim. Don't go easily with those crooks and fraudsters. And also, I think it's a good advice also to read again some of the O. Henry stories, because most of investment schemes and other schemes, they have been described there, and nothing new has been invented since then. So those crooks, they just do the same thing over and over again, basically hoping that we either haven't read O. Henry or just forgot those stories.
Okay.
So most of the schemes, they are around a term called social engineering. What is basically social engineering? This is an activity that is used basically to trick you into doing something. So this is psychological manipulation of people, and pressuring them into doing something that under regular circumstances they would never do this thing. Like a myriad example, that just, I mean, leaving your apartment and leaving something unguarded and going somewhere, and by this allowing those crooks to just break in, or I don't know, to leave your wallet on the table basically somewhere and just go away. So this is a great example. And usually there is an impersonation involved as well. So in this case, the crook impersonated representative of Ministry of Health. And in many cases, this is the best option for them to impersonate someone official, like NHS in UK, or a representative of any official entity in the States, because obviously people, they're disciplined, plus they trust the authorities, and they never question such an approach if it sounds professional and solid, and if the crooks use proper keywords, and they know, of course, how to talk to you, and what terms to use, and how to pressure you into doing something. So they manage to overcome your natural controls. They manage to present it as something unconspicuous. And here you have to use this gut feeling to sense that something is not right, something is not proper, and maybe you need just to rethink or double check. So they can also represent themselves as someone from your bank, someone from your Kupat Holim, someone from any place where you need your personal details or your password. So they can later on, of course, to take over your assets or your account. Sometimes if it's about investment, so they may impersonate representatives of the legitimate investment fund and try to spin a story, one life in a time opportunity or something, just to pressure you again that only today we have this this option, this opportunity. You have immediately to transfer or to buy something or to transfer money or to give you some detail. Okay, so this approach to you using social engineering can come via phone or via email. via SMS, via WhatsApp. So any communication channel available to them, they will use it. So with this, I hope that I explained the term properly. We can move into another term that you should be aware of, and it's called phishing. And I'm sure that most of you know what it is, but you have to know that phishing now, it's a very broad term, and it comes in many forms. And basically, like I said, it includes both emails and both SMS messages and messages coming from any app, communication app that you use, WhatsApp, Viber, Telegram, Signal, any form. And again, here they try to impersonate someone. So you can receive an SMS allegedly from your bank or from PayPal or from your internet provider. And usually this message, either email or another form, will include a link that you have to press. And of course, there will be a story around it, like we saw some suspicious activity in your account. Please log in and provide your password or your account details, so we may verify that it was your activity. So it will look very legit. It will even be signed like a bank security department or information security department or NHS or Bituach Leumi or something. But you have to press the link, and then this link takes you to a malicious site where you're asked to input your either private information like Teudat Zehut or account number, or you're asked to log in. So basically you give the fraudster your password, your username, and any kind of like secret questions that you have, and then you're able to log in into your account or any place where you store your personal information or your assets, and then of course they will do their thing, their fraud. So also very popular, a message coming from a Microsoft support team, like you have a problems with your computer, you have a problems with your phone, coming from a company that supports your phone, Cellcom or partner or anything. So my advice is to, if it comes through SMS, just disregard it. That's what I tell my parents, at least, because I mean, the chances that your bank or any serious company will provide such instructions to you via SMS, they're almost nil. If your bank or other things, they use two-factor authentication, which means that you log in with your password and then they also send you an SMS with a second code, then it's legitimate. But if it just out of the blue you receive a message telling you to do something, either to disclose your personal details or to log in with your password, then just disregard it, delete it, don't react to it, because if it's a real message, maximum the bank will contact you again through phone or from some other legitimate form of communication. I mean, even email should look suspicious. But for example, how we can check if the email is legitimate. So usually you will see that the address is legitimate. It looks like it's coming from your bank. It will say something, bankapoalim.com. But if you hover with your mouse over this address, or if it's on your iPad or iPhone, you just press on it, you will see the whole address it's coming from. And then you may see that actually only beginning of the address is made to look like it's from a legitimate domain of a bank, of another institution. But after it, you see the real address, and it will be something totally not authorized, or just some address. And then basically you can understand that it's a phishing and something is going on, because I mean, a couple of years ago, usually the text had grammar mistakes in it because those emails were coming from Africa or from Asia and their English was not so good. But now they really did their homework, and the text is perfect. They have all the logos, they copy paste all the signatures and all the right like authentication details into the email, so it looks really legitimate. And only through studying the address you can basically understand. As a private person, of course, companies, they have special tools to defend themselves that uncover phishing, but as a private individual, this is basically the only way. Of course, you may receive a message from PayPal and you don't have PayPal, so you know it's phishing. But otherwise, if you really have a PayPal, this is the only way to understand that. So please double check, triple check, and better not react to the first approach. Like, even if it looks legitimate, delete it and wait for a second one, because if it's a real case, there will be always a second attempt to contact you through the contact information that you provided. So they will probably have your phone. And the opposite, if someone just calls you and presents himself as a representative of something, better call back, or just take or use a legitimate type of contact details that you have with you, and check if it's a legitimate approach and not someone trying to just trick you. Sorry if it sounded a bit complicated, but just use your experience, your head, and I'm sure that 90% of the cases you won't be a victim.
So basically, it's if somebody says today is just for today, this special thing, you should log in. So from what I understand,
this is a great red flag. Yeah. I mean, this is a really a big
not to
red
take
flag.
them seriously.
Anything that sounds that someone tries to pressure you, to threaten you, or to create a sense of emergency, red flag. Because no real institution will try to pressure their clients, or to be rude, or to be, or like sound. And I mean, the cases of emergency, it should be like 0.01% of a normal activity. So just be careful.
Okay. How about you, Aaron? Can you give us examples of abuse in your area in the financial world?
Sure. Thanks for having me, first of all. Look, as a licensed advisor, both in Israel and in the U.S., with money sort of being in the middle, right? Your clients are, they are the target in certain respects. In terms of phishing, I'll tell you a story that happened a few years ago. I got an urgent call from a client. He was a doctor, a retired doctor. Go figure, right? And he goes, "I got to see you immediately." So I say, "Okay." So he comes down to the office and he says, "I got this email," and we've all gotten this email, right? I'm going to say something and you're going to be shocked that somebody fell for it, right? But he says, "I got an email that I won the lottery." Okay, I have to give a little money, and I'm flying. They told me to give a little bit of money, and I'm going to get the money. I just have to pay the tax on it or something, and then I'm going to get whatever it is, $50 million or something like that. So of course I said, "Did you enter the lottery? Right? How do you win a lottery if you don't buy a ticket?" All these things. I calmed him down. I calmed his wife down. About 2 weeks later, I was actually, I landed at Ben Gurion. I was abroad, and I came back, and I turned on my phone, and there was a frantic message from the wife. And she said, "My husband is on his way to the airport right now, and he bought a ticket to go to the UK. He's going to Heathrow, because they met up with him, and they told him, if you just give us an extra couple thousand pounds in cash, then we have a safe deposit box, and all in whatever it is, the 50 million pounds, $50 million is in the safe deposit box, and it'll be yours." So I, obviously told them in strongest terms possible, "Don't go. It's a scam. Please don't go." And it's a scam. And it turns out they didn't go. And obviously he had a little bit of dementia going on. And, you know, that's where it really, really it hits. And you see these things all the time, you know, it can even be, you know, help. When the elderly have help, you know, and they've got checkbooks. Alex, you mentioned checkbooks. You know, checkbooks lying around the house and signatures lying around the house, not on the check, but on something, right? It's not so difficult for the help or for somebody else to get into the house and just put two together, right? And get the signature and sign that check.
Yeah, the cleaning lady. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens all the time. You know, I don't want to give any names. We actually know somebody. I actually know somebody who was nailed for identity fraud, and he would go in and, you know, he went into a house once of an elderly person who didn't hear very well, and just got into the house. The door was open. He checked. He kept coming by. And one time, you know, he checked and the door was open. He came in, and the next thing we heard was that there were charges, you know, on a credit card. And thankfully, the credit card company has their security provisions built in, and they called, you know, the third party and said, are these your things? And we stopped it. But these are kinds of things which happen all the time. Now, those are the kinds of things which you hear about. They're in the news. But there's a different type of fraud also. And if I can, you know, sort of criticize my industry, there's more than one financial advisor out there who's gotten busted. And I bet you there's 100 times more who haven't gotten busted for taking advantage of the elderly. And it might be selling a product, an investment product to an elderly person where it's just not relevant to them. You know, let's say somebody's in their early 90s and you sell them a 25-year product, which is going to pay out over the course of 25 years. And there's a big fat commission for the advisor to do that. Obviously, that's a scam, a big, big scam, right? So it's really all over. And, you know, the regulators are starting to get in on it. Nobody knows the numbers, but their estimations, because a lot of the stuff is never reported. But I saw numbers that 1 in 5 elderly there's an attempted fraud against them financially. You're talking about tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud that goes on an annual basis. So it's a huge, huge issue. Wow. And everybody, family members, you know, everybody has to sort of keep their eyes open because people, you know, unfortunately, they're a target. And sometimes on a psychological level, right, when they get older and they were a doctor or they were impressive, right, pride comes in and they can't give up control and they think, no, don't bother me, I know what I'm doing. And that's when bad things really, really happen. So people really have to be keep alert about this kind of stuff.
That's very good points. That's very good
exactly.
point.
You have some very interesting movies on Netflix about, you know, those schemes, including what you mentioned. So if people have access, I would recommend watching one I think is called Dirty Money, and there are others that really give examples and go into the schemes. Exactly what you mentioned. It's not just against the elderly, of course, but they're the easy target again because of their trust and because they're just different from current generation, because they're just easier to use the social engineering on because of the way they grew up and the society was different.
They're more naive also, and they're less techie savvy. So they think it's probably right. They don't even bother looking at the things that you mentioned, like looking at the email address or thinking, you know, out of the box, because, you know, they said, so they must be true.
And who would ever think that their helper, right, who's taking them to the doctor and giving them their medicine and making salad for them, who would ever imagine that that person is wiping them out, might be selling, you know, valuable heirlooms? Who would ever dream of that, right? They're trusting, and that just compounds the problem.
Right.
So, and another problem is that the fraudsters, they keep developing and keep evolving. So if a couple of years ago, the scheme you mentioned, Aaron, about winning a lottery or getting an inheritance via some Nigerian lawyer, that a guy with your family name is deceased and left $100 million, and like you said, you just have to send us a couple of thousands to arrange a money transfer. And I mean, then people believed those schemes, even those things that look unbelievable. So now this is much more sophisticated, those schemes, and for people that, like you mentioned, retired doctors, retired professionals, that they feel that they're sophisticated as well, or that they filled serious positions, and that they did a lot of serious things. They think that, I mean, we will handle this complexity. It's fine, but I mean, it's they managed to defraud everyone. So of course they will succeed with people less tech savvy, for example, or just less involved with current products, that are less updated, that just read different type of news, that are interested in different topics, that just don't follow those things like we do. So it's not because you're elderly, or because it's just because you are maybe from different time, and you have different interests, so you're not aware of those risks. So this is the only purpose of our session here, just to update you, not to claim that you are weak or something, just to an awareness, because this is a big thing. If you're aware, you're protected. So going back, if I may, Mirit, to the
Of course.
complex financial products that maybe Aaron will elaborate a bit later on. Usually, elderly people become victims of fraudsters when they sell them very complicated financial products. I mean, it can be sold by legitimate brokers, of course, just to have make a buck fee, but also fraudsters can impersonate legitimate investment funds or legitimate brokers, and just sell a hot air balloon to people and take their money, when there is basically nothing behind the proposal. So I'm conscious about the time. So basically, what are the red flags? How can we recognize that something is suspicious, that it may be a fraud? So the proposal will be very tempting, very luring. So it will be a honeypot, basically. We call it a honeypot. It will be like fishing. So they will reel you in and put a very juicy thing out. So the profit will be above average, of course. It will be some kind of secret scheme. I heard about United Nations secret fund that only special people have access to it. So you will feel like you're special, that you're approached because you were CEO of a big company before you retired, or a doctor or someone, or you even were a broker yourself, but many years ago. So profit above average. Unique investment method. Usually they sell unexplainable but unique method. It's like Bernie Madoff. He presented like he developed a unique method that no one really understood. And the moment someone really tried to analyze the method, it was clear that it's fraud. Just no one listened. What else? They will never describe the method to you or the scheme. It will be very vague, only promises, a lot of hot air. And just understand that some of the fraudsters, they created a fake platform where you could log in and see graphs, see your account, see your profits, but it was all fraudulent. There was nothing behind it. It was all fake numbers. but it looked like a legitimate account, investment account, what you saw movements, you saw profits, and of course everything grew, and you never had to worry. But the moment you wanted to draw the money, then the problem started. And very shortly, just to mention some of those schemes, so you have, of course, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, very popular to lure people in, because it's just going up now and everyone invests in it. So a lot of fake schemes and ICOs when they just sell new coins. Forex, when you buy and sell currency. Actually now in Israel, I think it's illegal, but they operate from Cyprus, or they have a call center in India calling people, impersonating again a company in UK or in the United States selling those schemes. Very risky, and some of it just fraudulent and empty. And of course, Ponzi schemes, which are in general investment schemes where they gather money from a lot of people, and the first who get in, they actually manage to get something back. So they're like successful customers, and they're an example of a success of this scheme. But the more people join, of course, the more chances are that the owners won't be able to pay out to everyone, and it just fails and crumbles. So again, be careful, try to analyze, don't be tempted, and if it sounds too good to be true, it's a fraud.
Okay, so let's say
just simple, no magic schemes, and Aaron will confirm, no magic wand, no magic investments without risk or with above average profit. So just be careful and double, triple check. And if you have a doubt, talk to Aaron.
That's what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. So if there's somebody who really doesn't understand about financial investments and suddenly gets this email where it looks too good to be true, so it probably is too good to be true, the best thing probably to do is go to, their investment advisor who they trust and walk it through with them to make sure that it's actually a real thing and not just a fake. Correct, Aaron?
For sure. And I'll tell you, even in the regulators in the States have like a hotline for seniors that they can call if they think that they're being exploited financially. I mean, everybody's taking this really seriously. I think it has to do with, we mentioned the trust. Alex mentioned sort of, he went around it exactly, but you were hitting on it, the need for income, right? Elderly people are living on fixed income, very many of them. And if you can tempt them, if you put your money in the bank today, we all know you get a big fat zero. There's no interest. There's nothing which is guaranteed or safe, which is going to pay. You have to take a little bit of risk. So when somebody calls you up saying I'm from, whatever bank, when in the old days, you would go to 47th Street in New York to buy a watch, you buy a Rolex, but they spelled it wrong, it was, instead of the roll with an E, it was with an A or something like that, right? You bought it for $1.50 instead of for $1,000. So, it's, Goldman Sachs instead of Goldman Sachs, right? They call up with these fancy names and they're impressive and they promise you, way more than you could ever get. And that's the point, right? Like Alex said, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And we've seen it here also, not in the elderly. We've seen it. I remember there was an Israeli firm. They ended up getting in big trouble because it was a Ponzi scheme at the end, or a fraud. I'm not sure exactly what. They were calling up, offering 8%, 9% deposits from a Georgian bank. And we're not talking about Atlanta, Georgia. We're not talking about the state of Georgia. We're talking about the country of Georgia. Okay, and they were guaranteeing when other banks in dollar terms were giving maybe 1%, they were giving 9%, and it was guaranteed.
You have it now with Ukraine with 12-15% promise.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, they got people into that. And of course, that was a scam. And they got people into real estate deals where there was no property. One thing I can tell you, when you're buying this, there's been a lot of financial abuse, seniors and everybody, but for Israelis who buy real estate abroad, because they don't check and they rely on, sort of the old boys network. And sometimes they're also crooked and they'll sell the same apartment 3 times. I know somebody that happened to. They bought an apartment that had already been sold a few times. You have to be really, really careful to make sure it's your name, check the property. I mean, there's so much, you know, what you would tell your children to look out for, you yourself have to look out for. It's pretty basic, but people get, you know, if they're in a time of financial need, they sometimes take risks, which they shouldn't be taking. And they end up getting themselves into really, really big trouble. So again, for the third time, right? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And you have to really, really, you know, buyer beware.
Are there special flags that you look out for your clients on a financial investments that you yourself make for them?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, we get checked on our investments to make sure that our investments are in line with the goals and the needs of the client. But let's just take a step back. If we were to see unusual activity, right? Let's say the client never transfers money and all of a sudden, you know, a $50,000 or $100,000 wire transfer request comes through. That's something that before it'll get released, we actually have to look into. And we have to find out what the story is, right? If it's a real signature, if they really need the money, any kind of unusual activity, right? If they've sort of built up a track record over the years, right? So you sort of know what to expect and what not to expect. And all of a sudden, when the client sort of goes off a little bit, that's already a big, big red flag. And you have to look, it's our responsibility. It's the advisor, it's the firm's responsibility to make sure that you know, that they catch it. And sometimes it really is fine, but sometimes you never know. It could be, there could be a scam. Another thing that's been sort of put out there is what's called a trusted contact. We're required now, I think it's for everybody over 70, over 63. I'm not exactly sure the age. We do it for 20-year-olds who open accounts, where we have to get somebody who generally is a family member, but who is considered a trusted contact for the client. So that if we think something is wrong, maybe there's been a slippage mentally, a little dementia, whatever it is, or again, something over and over, either trades or whatever, which has not been sort of in the pattern of the client, we're actually able to call that person. We can't discuss any account information with them, obviously, because of secrecy, but we can find it. We can ask other questions to make sure that the client is okay, hasn't gone through any medical issues or anything like that. So everybody's pretty much on board, knowing that this is a big, big issue. And, you know, everybody's trying to do their best. But it's not just like on the advisors, it's family members also. And family members notice certain things, hear certain things. They should make a call also, or they should check with the elderly person and make sure that what's going on, and make sure, again, patterns are a beautiful thing. And if things go off a pattern, become not the normal, that's the biggest red flag that there is.
And Mirit and Aaron, if I may add, I mean, us talking may sound a bit complicated or boring to our audience, but again, I talked about O. Henry stories and Netflix movies, but also there was a very nice series in Israel in Hebrew about Eti Alon and Bank Lemishar, about like the biggest fraud in Israeli history. And it beautifully describes all the red flags, and her clients are elderly people basically that he defrauded with dormant accounts, people that trusted her for many years. It's exactly an example of everything we talked about, of how she became a fraudster and how she did it and how no one paid attention. So again, if what we say sounds boring and complicated, just watch the series. And I mean, it covers almost everything we described. And it's, of course, much more entertaining.
She would go to his car when people would come for a deposit. She would go out to their car and accept the deposit for them.
Yeah.
You know, that sounds like normal service, but that should be raising all kinds. You know, the sirens should be going off when you hear something like that, not just the flags.
Absolutely. I mean, I think two main things that I would take from that, apart from all that information that you guys gave everybody here, is not to be tempted to, you know, big deals that have like a time span of 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever it is, that you must do this right now quickly. And the other thing is, if you're not sure, then speak to other family members, digest the information, make sure that you're not actually don't do things on your own when you are not sure, because if you're not sure, use your gut feeling, as Alex said at the beginning. It's probably not something that you should be doing, and speak to a family member just to verify that. So it's not that you are not smart enough. It's actually probably you're very smart and you should be using your instincts, which are usually correct.
Exactly. Don't click things in a hurry, and don't disclose personal things in a hurry.
Never.
Just stop for a second and think about it, and it's better just to switch off or delete and let them contact you again. And then you have time to think about it.
You never lose money by not investing.
Absolutely.
Or not replying or not answering the phone, yeah.
100%. The only thing I would do in a hurry is if there's, which we haven't seen now for ages, is the mall. When the mall's finally open and there's that dress 50%, yes, then just go get it, because it's probably not going to be there tomorrow. But apart from that, everything else, weigh it out. Don't look at things. Don't do anything in a hurry and in a rush. Well, guys, it's been fascinating. Really, thank you so much for sharing all that information with us. I really, really appreciate it. Aaron, I'm going to put up your contact information later on the comments. And Alex, any questions that I have, I will transfer straight to you.
Pleasure.
So I hope everybody enjoyed as much as I did. And again, thank you, Alex and Aaron, again. And we're looking forward to our next live session anytime soon. So you should actually, check and make sure that you're not missing something important like tonight. Good night, everybody.
Stay healthy and take your vaccination, of course.
Absolutely, absolutely. Stay healthy.
Thanks.